And today I am speaking with Jen Barone, a fellow poet. She also is a fellow North Beach poet. We live in the same neighborhood in San Francisco that has a rich literary history. And today we're going to talk with her about her poetry and about her new book that is coming out and about a neighborhood event if you are local to the San Francisco Bay Area that you can attend this coming week. So, what would you like to say about yourself?
Oh, wow. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you, Rosemary. It's just so great. Yeah, I'm really excited that you're interviewing a lot of the local authors. I just am always astounded by like the rich literary history of our neighborhood, even though it's just a few blocks long. But every time I walk out my door, I meet writers, I meet poets. I met a woman this morning who was writing a play from Cafe Trieste. So it is one of the major reasons why I moved to North Beach, along with the fact that North Beach has like beautiful Italian and Italian American um, heritage. And both sides of my family are from Naples,
Mhm.
Italy, which is what this new book of poetry is really meant to honor. But I've always been inspired by my cultural heritage as a never ending inspiration, honestly, for a lot of the work that I do. This particular book, and it goes a little bit deeper than maybe like past
Mhm.
writing that I've done in the sense of consciously going into ancestral heritage and maybe
Mhm.
going a little bit liminal between the realms,
Mhm.
as well as getting into myth and mythology. So yeah, I've spent a lot of time in my life traveling to Italy. I'm originally
Mhm.
from Brooklyn, New York, which was also a kind of Italian
Mhm.
American hub
Yeah.
um, of New York City. And but I've been out here for about 2 decades or so in
Mhm.
North Beach, and yeah, it's just been a
Mhm.
journey. Ever since I was young, I've written poetry as well as hosted open mics.
Mhm.
I started hosting once in my living room in Brooklyn, and then
Oh,
it got so crazy. The cops came.
what?
We were being too loud. A guy showed up with like a stand-up bass and a microphone. And so I said, "Oh, we should move this out, somewhere else." So I wound up, hosting open mics, like poetry open mics in the East Village for many years. And
Oh,
then I moved,
fun.
yeah, and then I moved out here, and I immediately, like after 1 month of moving out here, I didn't know anybody really, but I wound up hosting a poetry and jazz open mic for many, many years in the Haight Ashbury,
Mhm.
because that's where I had moved initially, and then eventually to multiple like locations throughout the city. So I've had a lot of experience hosting open mics, hosting poetry readings. Now I don't do. I don't host open mics anymore, but I do host and sometimes curate more, yeah, curated readings around specific themes. And over the past few years, I've started to also put together dual language. So, going,
Mhm.
as mentioned, a little bit deeper into putting together Italian language and English language readings of poetry at our local and pretty amazing bookstore, Libreria Pino slash Telegraph Hill Books, which is one of the country's only Italian language bookstores. But Telegraph Hill Books in the front is the English and local author language books. And so that's been just amazing to have that as a
Mhm.
resource in this neighborhood for me personally. And I've also taught a bunch of series of writing workshops there,
I've
which
attended.
Rosemary has been in, which has been such a pleasure. And I've been they're very experimental, I have to say.
Mhm.
So I've really stepped out of my personal comfort zone with a lot of the content. To be honest with you, I was very scared to present a lot of the content that I brought forward in some of these experiential workshops because it was not very typical
I liked
writing.
it. It was
Yeah, it's very experiential.
the last one I went to, she, uh, brought us through a trip to Italy, It was very, yes, it was like we talked about, well, which one was, I did several. I've done several with you, but there was definitely a theme, and there was a theme. We talked a little about it. We saw pictures from Italy. We got into our what is it, what, tangible selves, we're grounding our, it's like more of an experiential experience. So we got I think in the one that I attended, I said to the group afterwards, we were sharing things, and I said, "Wow, this is like the grounding part was for me this time, but sometimes I write things in a workshop that I can share immediately." And that time I was like, "No." It was all about grounding my body and thinking about the sensual parts of the things we were trying to kind of connect to. So I've
Yeah,
appreciated that. Yeah,
yeah, we did a lot of, like, somatic exercises.
that's what it was. Yeah,
Yeah, so some somatic work, but then in the body, but then also working with objects, working with imagery, working with sound, working with
yeah.
all the senses, and so
And then
working with
the
spiritual
themes of
concepts.
the themes of Italian. We still went to Italy.
Yeah,
So,
so, like, Italian culture, like I said, for me is really rich and deep because, there's a lot of aspects of it that are a little bit uncommon. Unfortunately, with Italian American culture in the United States, we have to deal with a lot of stereotypes in popular culture. But there's all these other sides, to Italian culture that are a little bit obscure, but also ancient. I mean, we're talking about a country that's has deep, deep history in terms of all the different influences that have come through that country, as well as the different practices. Spiritual practices as well as folk traditions and things like that. You could really go learn and study and experience forever and keep unearthing
mhm,
new things, So it is for me like fodder for a lot of inspiration for my work,
mhm.
and I keep going back to it all the time.
When
But
did
yeah,
you decide? So for me, so I'm also Italian American. My family also comes from the Naples area, also Brooklyn based. My father grew up in Brooklyn and then Long Island, and had a huge Italian family with all the cousins and everything. Um, but for me, so I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So we had moved. We didn't like we weren't around all of the extended family like he was when he grew up in the 50s and 60s, and so I didn't connect. I mean, from the standpoint that I saw how the Italian family worked when I was, worked, mingled together when we were visiting in the summers, I didn't have that same sense of the continuity of the culture. And so did you have that growing up in Brooklyn or?
yeah, it's an interesting question because there's a mixture of people like growing up in Brooklyn as well as here in North Beach. To be honest with you, too, there's people who don't have struggle speaking English still,
Mhm,
and in other cases, like for instance, I'm second generation
mhm,
Italian. I did not know any Italian growing up, like didn't
right.
speak it at all, and had to really reclaim that. And I'm still reclaiming that and still working very hard to study the language and bring that forward. So for me, I have to try to push myself as a writer, as an artist, whatever, as a human, to always
Mhm,
be stepping out of my comfort zone in terms of growing. And
mhm.
so for me to organize like a poetry reading that's dual language is frightening.
Yeah.
And then also had a lot of people from the Italian consulate there, and the Italian
Oh,
consul general was there. And like I was like, I better get these words
you're
right.
now an ambassador for the Italian Americans.
Yeah, I mean, like, things like that were happening, and, it was
Uh-huh.
very stressful, and, because for me and I have quite a few poems, actually, maybe 2 poems in this new book, Sirenland, that are about, the reclaiming of language and actually the shame. There's sort of an aspect of shame that's around it when you've lost your own language, like,
Mhm.
and can't speak for me, once I started to relearn, Italian, I was then, only then, after multiple years of really struggling to learn it, able to speak with family members back in Italy. But
Mm,
before that, I wouldn't have been able to communicate with them at all. And
mhm,
then the secondary aspect of it is, if you want to get into the liminal space or the ethereal realm, which I'm very much interested in, if you're doing things like ancestral journey or attempting to work with dreams and dream states, once I started learning Italian, I was able to communicate with my grandmother who had passed,
oh,
in dreams and things like
uh-huh,
that. And I've kept a dream journal for many years. So for me, I'm very active in the dream world.
mhm,
And some of that content and some of that like kind of came through writing exercises too, where we're
mhm,
working in this sort of liminal space. Because poetry for me, like poetry is like a portal, poetry is like a gateway to the liminal,
mhm,
and some people, you know, can pull quite a bit of inspiration from that space, from the space of dreams,
mhm,
the surreal kind of imagery that's there. I mean, poetry really lends itself to opening that doorway through language, through images, through visuals of being able to access like other realms
mhm,
of consciousness, essentially.
mhm,
But if you go also deep into these are aspects of Italian culture that are a
mhm,
little bit more mysterious and hidden.
mhm,
But if you were to go and travel to Italy and really start looking at symbols, symbolism, the imagery, because when you go to Italy, like everything is really decorative, elaborate. But when you start to look at that, and I studied art, so one of the first books when I went to art school that was given to me was like Carl Jung's Man and His Symbols, and I had to read that before my first day of art school, like in college, and it was really profound. And for me, still to this day, like the sacred geometry and sacred geometric patterns and um, yeah, symbols of the goddess culture essentially
mhm,
that still is alive and well and existing there is also
mhm,
really such fodder for
mhm.
incredible amounts of like inspiration. But these are like lesser known, lesser talked about
Yeah,
um, concepts around Italian culture.
sure.
It's out sitting outside the stereotypical purview of Italians and Italian American culture.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that. So for me, like you, I'm like my dad was his my grandparents spoke Italian, but not to my dad or to that generation. They spoke with their parents and whatnot. So somehow it just didn't kind of go down. I do remember being 5 or 6 years old and asking my mother, who was not Italian, to get Italian lessons. So there were some attempts to like learn Italian over the years, but they didn't really go anywhere. So I ended up doing Spanish because of that's what they offer in school.
Mhm.
And but so I also loved language from a small age, from knew what poetry 5, 6, 7. Whenever I started writing, I wanted to write poetry all of a sudden. But for you, when did you start claiming the language? When did you start?
Yeah, it wasn't until I first went to Italy, actually. So, I was writing poetry since I was really young. Like,
Mhm,
I don't know why or how I was drawn to it but I was really into it when I was probably like in grade school. Honestly, you
yeah.
would find me in the library, like sitting in the poetry section with all the books out. I just loved it, and I would just write. And there was nobody in my family who did it. I didn't have anybody really in my community who even did
Mhm,
it. I don't know. I just really got into and I never stopped. It's been an
mhm,
unbroken chain of that.
mhm.
Also journal writing. I've
Yeah.
kept a journal like since I was like unbroken chain of journal writing since I was very young too. Um, but I first started. I also first my second language that I learned was Spanish for
Mhm,
many years, and then a little bit of French because I had wanted to go to France. And then I did go to France on my first trip to Europe. I went for about 2 months to Europe the first time I went, And about midway through the trip, I didn't really I wanted to go to Italy, and I went with a friend there, but something happened to me the first time I got there, and the first place I landed was Venice on a night train from Austria and Germany. And I came in by train, but it was, yeah, I just became something came over me, and I wound up multiple weeks in Italy. I met a friend who took me, and I met their family, and I didn't even know any of my family at this time in
Mhm.
Italy. I knew they were there, but I had no way of connecting to them because, again,
Mhm.
I didn't know the language, and a lot of people, my father didn't at the time either. I don't understand why my father never spoke Italian, being that my grandmother, his mother, only
Mhm.
spoke Italian.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
very weird, and so,
Mhm.
like, this is something to note about Italian American culture is that we lost our language in one generation, like,
Yeah,
it's just completely lost,
right.
and then also lost, like, ties to family, so immigrating to the United States, like, you don't see that a lot in other cultures, like Indian
Mhm.
culture and, like, people immigrating from Mexico and other where they just completely lose their language, completely lose access to any of their family member. I mean, but Italian culture, there's a really big break, and a
Well,
lot of
maybe it was the times, because like, I know my grandmother was born in 1916, the youngest of, who know 13 children, only so many survived or whatever, but it was like she the only little thing that she would say is, my name changed, she went from Maria to Mary,
Mhm,
and they had to, even though it was Catholic school and highly Italian, they had to be American, and
right.
so it
Yeah, the
was.
Americanization was really deep.
Yeah, it was like, don't pretend, don't show people that you're, I mean, now in their life, they were very Italian. They were doing all the things,
Yeah,
and
there was an aspect of shame
yeah,
around speaking English for
yeah,
them, but now me, a generation or so later, feels shame in not being able
not
to speak
right.
Italian. So it's
Mhm.
there's a lot of shame around the language, and that is challenging. And then to try to reclaim it is really difficult because
Right.
with Spanish, for instance, in San Francisco, like to be able to learn Spanish, there's a lot more opportunity to use it. You could
Yeah.
use the language in jobs as well as like the local neighborhood. Italian, you got to really to make an effort.
Find your people. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, there's some meetup groups, and then of course there's
Uh-huh.
language classes, but it's really hard to find places to use it, and so it
There's also this.
requires a lot of
There's also
effort.
Yeah. There's also the north and south, right? Because like even in our neighborhood, my next door neighbor is Italian, speaks Italian, he grew up here, but his family's from Northern Italy, and during the pandemic, I met all these Sicilians. I was on, I was working from home, so I was going out during lunchtime when all the retired people were hanging out at the cafes, and I just got in with this group of Sicilians, and um, even though they're in the same neighborhood, they don't always mix. So there's the language, and one of the guys was saying how he took his mother in an ambulance, but the guy asked in the ambulance asked his mother if she was Russian because the Sicilian dialect they were using was so different from Italian. But I was just thinking of, it's like, yeah, finding your place and how you like how who you're gonna speak to and practice with and interact with. I have met a lot of older Italians here who still speak it. I don't know
Yeah,
more
and you
than three
actually
words in Italian, but
I actually that's exactly who I use it with, like, I talked
Mhm.
with a lot of the older Italian men that hang out in the cafes, and, like,
Yeah,
when I know that they, like, will speak it with me, I'll just, like, attempt to use it with them and have
yeah.
some, like, simple conversations with them. But then I also go to, like, a meetup group, a
Mhm.
language group and things like that, but, yeah,
Yeah.
it's very strange, like, so, yeah, just only 2 generations ago, like,
Mhm.
people came from Italy, but they were speaking dialect.
Yeah.
Now, a few generations later, most people are learning what's called proprio Italian, just the proper, like, which is basically the Florentine dialect
Yeah, okay.
from
Mhm.
Dante.
Mhm.
It is colloquial, but it's of Florence. So, a lot of the people who immigrated are usually from Calabria, at least in New York. Calabria, this is all southern Italy.
Mhm.
Calabria, Sicily, Naples.
Mhm.
Here
It
in San
it's
Francisco, there's
it's
a
the
lot of
fishermen.
the
Like, there's a
fishermen.
lot of well, my one of my neighbors, his family, he's again one of like 10 or 12 people, and he's the youngest, and they came in the 60s to fish. So even at that late time of immigration, I'm assuming when Italians came over to this neighborhood, it was World War II era. But anyway, yeah, he said his family was fishermen.
Yeah,
Like,
so the sea, if you think about Italy, right, is, like, surrounded by multiple 3 different seas, right? We have the Adriatic, the Tyrrhenian, and the Mediterranean. So, yeah, water, being near water, like, this is actually something that I feel like is very much in my personal DNA. Like, I cannot live in a desert, and I can't live, like, in a landlocked place. Like, there's something about that for me in my DNA that feels, like, claustrophobic, or
mhm,
I feel unsettled. Like, I need to
mhm,
be near the sea, and, like, the sea for me is healing, and, I just feel so deeply connected to it, and I need to be near it. That's, like,
mhm,
in my blood, in my DNA, but these are things that, when you start to feel into yourself, I feel like are very important aspects of the spiritual life, as well.
mhm.
But this
You
book, this new
Yeah,
book,
that was good. That's a great segue into your book on
yeah,
sirens.
I was gonna say that, I'm really excited. So, Friday, June 5th, we're gonna have the book release party, and I invited a band to play. It'll be, like, integrated with music, but one of the songs they're gonna play is called Canzone del Pescatore, which is, like, the song of the fisherman.
Oh, nice.
And so, since you mentioned that, and yeah, like fish, and I did some of the paintings and the drawings in this book, but fish are definitely a part of it, and fish are so symbolic of so much. In terms of, this is like another type of little fish that's
Um,
in there. This was actually from a photograph of one of my cousins in Italy had gone fishing, and I loved the faces of these fish.
mhm,
Like, they were very expressive. um, but yeah, so this new book is called Sirenland, and it's because, as I mentioned, both sides of my family are from Naples, around Vesuvio. So this mountain that's behind the siren is the volcano Vesuvius that kind of overtook Pompeii. So it's very famous. But it's interesting because mythology of this area around Sorrento, the Sorrentine Peninsula, and the bay, and the islands that are there. So you have 3 islands also off the coast of Naples. Some of them, there's a lot of volcanic land. So you have the volcano Vesuvio, but then lesser known volcanoes like the super volcano that's there on the other side of Naples, as well as the volcanic islands of, like, Ischia is a volcanic thermal island. So thermal water. So you have fire and water. So
mhm,
that already is
mhm,
like it explains a lot the passionate nature of people from Naples. Like, we're very passionate, about everything. We're passionate about food, about love, about, you know, the way that we talk, the way that we express ourselves. And so this is just fiery nature, but then it's also got the balance of water. You have fire and
mhm.
water. But the mythology, so southern Italy used to be ancient Greece. This is before Roman times, as well as being, taken over by other various groups throughout history. But it was, essentially Greece, and it has some of the most intact Greek temples, even more well preserved than in Greece,
Oh,
actually.
I didn't know that. That's new. Uh-huh.
So it'd be a beautiful location around a little bit south of Naples called Paestum. And then Cuma, which was one of the first Greek settlements, is on the other side of Naples. So Vesuvio is on one side of the bay, and then on the other side was the first settlement of Cuma. And yeah, so the Greek culture obviously is connected to the myth of the Odyssey, which one of the most famous, and there's going to be a movie with Matt
Mm,
Damon and the Odyssey coming out mid-July. There's been
Oh,
many
nice.
movies,
Mhm,
interpretations of the books, famous, but of course, one of the most famous scenes is the sirens, and the siren mythology literally takes place in the Bay of Naples. However, most people know only the history of the sirens from Odysseus and the
mhm,
Odyssey, but the siren mythology has much deeper, longer history prior to that story and
mhm.
also post the Odysseus story. And one of the stories that gets pulled through this book is there were three sirens, and one of the sirens, Partenope, her body washes up on the shore of the land, and her body actually like becomes the land.
Mm,
And so before Naples was called Naples, it was called Partenopea, which was
mhm.
named after the siren, and the people were called Partenopeans.
Oh,
And
really? Uh-huh.
yes, and they used to have coins with her face on it, and there used to be temples to the sirens, and this is in real life. This is
Mhm,
not myth.
mhm,
There used to be physical temples to the sirens, and people would bring offerings around Sorrento Peninsula and other areas. And there's many different folklore and mythology that connects to her. So there's a
mhm,
story around Virgil finding the egg of Partenope because she's
mhm,
half woman, half bird. And
mhm.
then around the Middle Ages or medieval times, the sirens morphed from half woman, half bird into half mermaid like, half
Yeah,
woman, half fish.
I
So
just found
actually,
that out. I was
both are true.
I just found
It's,
out, I don't know, I was doing actually a Spanish lesson, and my Spanish teacher, we were talking about the sirens, and we were talking about the bird, and I'm like, "I don't remember the bird part."
yeah, yeah, so
So,
there's a
yeah.
painting that I did in the very beginning of this book, that is a famous, like, fountain. It's called the Spinne Corona,
Mm,
in Naples, and actually out of her breasts, come water,
mhm,
because this egg that was found, Virgil, the poet Virgil, so
mhm,
poetry also very important in
mm,
terms of the, history of Naples, but he took the egg and he cast a spell on it, 'cause he
mm,
was a little bit of a sorcerer
mhm,
as well as a poet. And the myth is that the egg, the siren's egg, is still hanging in this castle that exists off the coast of Naples. It's called the Castel del Ovo, and there's a poem about that in this book.
mm,
But the egg that had cast a spell over the siren's egg is meant to protect the city from volcanic eruptions.
mm,
So the siren is connected to Vesuvio. There's another myth also where the siren Partenope and the god Vesuvio, because Vesuvio was also a god mythology story, was that they were lovers, and the breast milk basically cools the fires of Vesuvio. So she's like the watery element or the milk
uh-huh,
element of the land,
mhm,
and it's cooling off the volcanic, the threat of the volcano. So my family lives actually on the flanks of Vesuvio, and
oh,
it's really interesting. I looked into history of like wondering when was the last time it erupted.
mhm,
And it did erupt right around the time that my grandmother came here, and I wondered a little bit
mhm,
if she had come here because there was like a pretty big, massive
uh-huh,
eruption at the time. And so even my family to this day, I always talk to them about like, what is it like to live on Vesuvio? Because it's a dormant volcano
yeah,
and they still are under the threat that it might, you know, explode again.
mhm,
Oftentimes there's a lot of earthquakes in the area because again, there's two volcanoes there and a lot of activity underneath the earth. And yeah, there's a general fear. Yeah, it's like living in California where we have to
yeah.
deal with earthquakes all the
Yeah, but
time.
earthquake plus being,
Yeah.
I don't know, the volcano thing is like one extra.
That's what I
So,
mean, like, I have a poem in this book about, like, sleeping on Vesuvio,
mhm,
as well as, being on Vesuvio in general because, coming as a little bit of an outsider into it, It is scary, but it's also makes you feel alive. It's like the fear of that possibility also like puts you on edge and makes you feel like the vitality of life. Like, you coming close to that aliveness, in just your day to day as you are there. There's something about volcanic energy that it just like the lava comes up and it creates new worlds, it creates like new land. And there's just something so vital and the force behind that. So,
Mhm,
so the siren myth goes for me much deeper than just the story of Odysseus,
mhm,
because she's the protector of the fishermen. She's the protector of the sea, the protector of the sea. She's the origin story of the city of Naples. Her body became the land.
mhm, mhm.
And so, yeah, there were many temples to the sirens, and people would also have these bells that looked like the mermaids that would hang outside of their house, and it would kind of ward off like negative energy and things like that.
Did you find out about was so there was a transition between the bird and the mermaid?
Yeah, so
Like,
about
it went from
medieval.
land to sea. Yeah.
Or actually, so I had a really hard time like coming up with this imagery for the cover, until I met a man in Sorrento, actually, the last time I was there, who paints really beautiful ceramics of the sirens. And him and his wife both paint, mainly all their ceramics are imagery of the sirens and the land. But they actually still have this spiritual relationship with the sirens, in the sense of like they talk to them like in their
Mhm,
daily life. Like they kind of feel like they're liminal creatures. And this is I want to say part of this belief is a precursor to the Odysseus story, because in
mhm,
ancient Greek times, the sirens were also part of the story with Persephone
mhm.
and Demeter. They actually grew wings so that they could find Persephone in hell, in Hades, right?
Oh, okay. Mhm,
And bring her back. So the Greek tradition, sort of viewed the sirens as liminal creatures that could pass into heaven or hell or wherever,
okay, okay.
and kind of be able to guide spirits and guide
Mhm,
souls. Sometimes they were put on gravestones for that purpose. And so this man who makes ceramics in Sorrento talked very much about like the sirens being these liminal kind of spiritual guides,
mhm.
and him and his wife access when he's like creating ceramics. So this is like very different
Yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of like what we know as Italian
Right,
culture.
right, right. No, that's really cool. Oh, let me say real quick, Raven Silk is a comment. Wow. Oh, we're talking about the sirens and the milk. Wow, that's
Yes.
fantastic. Could the milk be in the sense of a cosmic empress having void milk of the darkness side?
I'm not sure what that means, but in my understanding of it is it's like a nourishing quality.
Mhm.
There's many myths and folklore and gods and goddesses and things like that that are connected to fertility in
Yeah.
Italy,
Mhm.
and especially in Pompeii.
Mhm.
A lot of the art that is seen as sexual, sensual art. Pompeii is known for like highly sexual, sensual art.
Mm. Okay.
And a lot of that is also in this book.
Mhm.
But it's really misunderstood by American culture, that
Yeah.
concept,
Yeah.
and most cultures, in general. If
Well, I
there's
think in
if there's a misunderstanding about sexuality in
yeah.
general,
Yeah.
and how to use it and how it's like
Yeah.
a
No,
healing force.
I think as, the pop culture where you're basically you take these myths that have such a rich, long history, and then, well, okay, there's the Americanization of things also where you're not getting the whole story, but then where you're focusing on just like a little piece that's able to be commercialized or whatever. I don't know. It's been a while. I think we studied Greek myths and Roman and Greek myths in like the 7th grade. And so it's been a long time since of course I read the Odyssey, going out through my education, you touch on those literature things that carry through, but it's been a while since I've remember who everybody is.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
so
and
when
the
you were so, but you went to Italy to kind of find out more about the sirens, right? Or was that, or do you,
yeah, I mean, I just tend to go to want to connect, to my family and
yeah, okay.
my family's, kinda background, in particular for this book, 'cause that
Mhm,
it is a little bit of a personal I'm pulling in myth and I'm pulling in, like, historical and archaeological,
mhm,
like, aspects and context, but it is, my passion for wanting to is to know myself, and I
mhm,
think a lot of writing is that way, you
mhm,
know, when you're or any creative act, it's like, there's an aspect of you wanting to explore yourself, you know?
mhm. Yeah.
And part of yourself is your lineage and your family's history, of course, and your relationship to that.
Mhm.
Me being a semi outsider to it because I've been displaced, from Italian culture as an American now, um, requires me to have to go and learn a lot.
Mhm.
But there's something cool to that aspect because I come in with a complete like outsider's perspective on it as opposed
Right.
to when you're born into that culture and you're living in it. Like for instance, like, yeah, everybody knows this maybe if you live in Naples. You kind of just grow up inside of it and don't think
Mhm.
much of it.
Right.
However, if you're going as an outsider back in to go, what is all this about? Where are all these sirens? Like there's a curiosity
Yeah.
to that I've been gifted since being displaced from from
Yeah.
all. So
Did
I
you,
can
since
come
you
back
were,
and go, what is all this?
but did people like recognize it, like this man that you met, this artist that you met, did he was like, "Oh, this is," did it seem obvious to him that he would be doing this and that you were asking questions, or
When I told him about my book and I
oh,
told him
okay.
about my project and he was like, he got all excited and I wound up talking to him for an hour. He almost it almost got the feeling of like, "Oh, yeah, you get it. You understand, like, somebody cares." You know? Because, like,
Nice.
that is what happens when you are inside of a culture is that you can't
Mhm.
really see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
You're just kind of inside of it.
Yeah.
And so you don't have that like little bit of detachment that allows you to come in with like fresh eyes or beginner's mind, as they say in the Zen
Mhm.
tradition. Um, yeah, so it's kind of nice to have a little bit of that gift of like new eyes,
Mhm.
um, to come in and rediscover something that's been there, you know,
Mhm.
um,
So do you
and
have
that
any, how did you, so you have different, I mean, obviously it's about the sirens, your book. But did you, how did you kind of start putting that together or taking these themes and working it into the poetry part?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of it came from, like I said, learning the language, being able to go into my dream state, in my
Mhm.
dream state, like reconnecting to my grandmothers in my dreams and being able to speak to them in my dreams. But then when I go back to that area, it's about gaining connection to the spiritual energy of the land and the sea.
Mhm.
Because in Italy, we have spirits of place. And this
Mhm.
comes from ancient Greek tradition as well as in the Roman times. And there's some poems in this book also about it. But if you go to a sacred spring, or you go to a mountain top, or you go to like certain what would be like special places in nature, there's
Mhm.
typically a guardian or a
Mhm.
spiritual guardian of that place. So a nymph would
Mhm.
be a spirit guardian of a place that has to do with water, so like a sacred spring or things like that. And so for me, the sirens are these kind of spirit guardians of land, sea, but also they go into the sky, right? Because they had
Mhm.
wings and could fly, but they could also swim because they became mermaids. So it's like, yeah, when you talk about, as somebody had talked about darkness,
Yeah.
I might write that word and say it's not darkness, it's depth. So
Okay.
like when a siren goes down into the deep water, we're talking about going into the psychological depth of the emotional body, the spiritual self. When you go up
Mhm.
into the sky. It's this vastness, right? It's being
Mhm.
able to transcend through dimensional space and time. And so
Mhm.
that's the power for me of the sirens, and this guy, this man who, does pottery and ceramics there too. And a
Mhm.
lot of people that you might talk to have that
Mhm.
inclination to perceive life. Some people might say, what's the term? Animistic. So, some people might say it's shamanic. Other people
Mhm.
use now the term animistic, although it doesn't really completely describe for me. More
Mhm.
shamanic feels a little bit closer,
Mhm. Mhm.
because shamanic is to realize that there's other dimensions to access besides just this physical one.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, the Romans and the Greeks believed and had temples to and gave offerings to nature guardians or nature spirits. There would be, spirit of the fountain, spirit of the sacred well, spirit of,
Mhm.
this mountaintop.
Mhm.
And then it eventually, after Christianity, morphed into this Madonna that appeared there. She's the
Oh,
Madonna of
right.
the
Yeah,
Madonna
that's
of
so
the
interesting. Yeah,
baths.
right. How you kind of thread your beliefs into the newest, yeah, that's very interesting.
Well, we don't have
Okay.
that in the United States, right?
Yeah,
Because we're a new country. But
yeah.
in Italy, when you go there and you start really like digging into the history, you realize it is an unbroken chain. So, for instance, I went to a Madonna festival that was around Pompeii, and it's the Madonna of the Baths. But if you go back into history,
No.
underneath that church, prior to Christianity, you would have Nephitis, which was like the guardian of this particular sacred well. So
Mhm.
it was a goddess culture tradition that had another name, and you find that often in Italy. Like, well,
Mhm.
you'll find a church, and then if you went back and dug into the history of ancient, that church was built on top of this temple, right? And
Mhm.
same thing with the sirens. So the
Mhm.
sirens had a temple, for instance, in around Sorrento, multiple ones, but there was one I went to try to find in a town called Mazzalubrenzi. Mazzalubrenzi is right at the end of the Sorrentine Peninsula, and they have a Madonna that's underneath the water. They actually
Mhm.
dive down in the water, and they
Oh.
put roses on her
Oh,
underwater.
really? There's like an underwater that's so interesting.
There's an
That's
underwater Madonna. They put
uh-huh.
roses on her underneath
Uh-huh.
the water. And then they'll pull up something else and, like, take it around on a boat. But to me, that is very much, like a siren. It's a
Yeah.
siren Madonna when
Yeah,
they dive under the water and put
right.
roses.
Well,
But then
we have a couple questions, that
yeah,
kind
sure.
of fits in with that. Marcia says, "Where do you place the sirens along the spectrum from mother to temptress?" Because I know,
Mhm.
because part of that is the part of the story I know from the sirens is more like,
Yes.
they're dragging sailors to their death or whatever,
Yeah,
tempting them.
yeah, Raven might have came in late to the conversation because earlier on we talked about that as like the siren Partenope basically being the mother of Naples, like her body became the
Mm,
city. Her egg was cast as a spell,
mhm,
to protect the city. So
mhm.
yeah, this book explores this other side
Okay.
where because the
The
Odysseus story is a patriarchal, like kind of Greek
Yeah,
tale, but the history of the sirens, brings forward,
more
like this
maternal.
other side,
Uh-huh.
where they were perceived as protectors and guardians of the land, and the people to this day, this is n we think of myth as, like, being, fake story, but the people to this day really have connected spiritual relationship with these entities of the
Mhm,
land and the sea, and it's very real, and it's very
mhm,
much like active in the
mhm,
culture, much like they have relationships with the mystical
mhm,
Madonnas that appear in all these different places. So in Italy and other places too, we have these spiritual beings of place. And they
mm,
very much belong to that place. They belong to
right.
that spring. They belong to that mountain. They belong to that volcano. They belong to that cove. And so to go to those places is to really go in and listen. So in my personal travels there, you know, there's an aspect of I really like to go and do nothing
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
opposed to being a tourist,
Yes.
because I like to go and really be in the land, be in the sea, and listen.
Yeah.
If you stop and you really connect to the land and connect to the sea, you will start to hear like a song. You will start to hear the voice of the land, the voice of the sea. And this is an aspect that poetry is like a portal, because to write poetry is to really deeply listen,
Mhm.
in a very abstract way to life, that's
Mhm.
happening in front of you. Light and poetry tends to like look at a tiny moment, look at a tiny detail, and like blow it out,
Yeah. Right.
and so I really highly recommend, that if want to connect to these things as a real practice. It really is about just going in and with a lot of reverence and listening to the land and sea itself, because the stories are in, the place.
Mm. Mhm. I like that. Yeah, I like the idea of going to yeah, just like finding the essence of the place. Like when we go as a tourist, we're just it is like skimming you want to see as much as you can, right? And maybe you go on a tour or do that kind of thing, but and I haven't traveled abroad too much. I went to London once, and my friend, I remember sure saying like, what did you do today? And I was like, oh, I just walked around your neighborhood. I went to the grocery store. I went by this pool playground, those kinds of things. um yeah, it's just interesting. And then somebody else said, oh, a friend said that they were traveling through Egypt, got to see the pyramids or something. But he was like the tourist for the day looking at the pyramids, right? And there were people praying and crying,
Right.
and it was like, the dichotomy of, he said, of watching the tourist groups kind of march by, and then the people who were connected to the place literally praying and connecting to it on a deeper level. Kind of, he was just by himself, so he kind of got the third eye view of it, and I that was very interesting to me too. It's like how
Well,
we
I
can do
think that's like the difference between being a tourist and being it's like you see that a lot in Italy too. Like if you go to a church, it's like people come into the church and pretend like act like it's a museum
Yeah,
instead of going in and with reverence and realizing that it's a deeply sacred space with like we're talking like hundreds to maybe thousands of years of history behind it.
yeah, right.
And it's like there's two different and that is a great example, like two
Hmm.
different entry points, and like to go in with the respect for the sacred is really a completely different and beautifully profound experience, if you're able to access that.
Hmm.
But I don't really like the aspect of like churches being turned into museums per se. Although, yes, the art, it's really nice that everybody has access to like see the art.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's much deeper than that.
Yeah.
But again, in this other case, especially if you don't connect to a particular religion or you feel awkward about going into a religious space, I feel like there's an aspect of that you could still bring to even just
Hmm.
visiting the land itself or the
Yeah.
seas,
Yeah.
and I think all of it is sacred. Basically, all of it is sacred, you know.
Hmm.
So I hope that comes through in this book.
Would you like to read one? Could you read
Sure,
one?
sure. I'll see if I could.
This is
Uh,
unplanned, sorry.
Yeah, no, I would love to, maybe read a book. I'll read, like, the first song, um, or the first, well, actually, maybe
And
this
did
one.
you do this in English and Italian, or just English this time?
This is in English,
Okay.
this book, but it is, there's some Italian concepts,
Hmm.
throughout the book and maybe some Italian words,
Hmm.
but for the most part, it's in English. I wouldn't categorize it, as an Italian book, but it's the themes come through.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, I'll do this one. How to hear a siren song, since I'm
Okay.
talking about
Mhm.
listening to the land and the sea.
Mhm.
Her song, not always melodious, often wild, incoherent. Her moods revealed in moon phases might be deadly, may pierce your organs, repair what's misunderstood. Her nature commands live freely, enter the sea, submerge your eyes and ears, become one with a body of water. Find her, guiding star in the storm, seamstress who threads a new story, baker molding bodies into loaves of bread, winged mother flies through dimensions, searches for missing soul parts. Her wisdom song emerges from caverns. Put your ear against a shell, close your eyes, and listen to your blood.
Mhm.
And so I think that talks a little bit about what I was
Yeah.
talking,
Yeah.
which is like it's a very visceral experience. And I think a lot of things in Italian culture are like that. Like we talk with our hands, you know, food
Mhm.
is really important. We
Yeah.
like to, there's a lot of touch involved.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
definitely.
then relationship to nature is very similar.
Mhm.
You have to put your body into it, you know,
Mhm.
like really feel it in your bones. Um, but I think there's an aspect to every culture of when you're going in to work with your ancestry in that way, where it's in your blood, it's in your DNA. It's very much somatic, you
Mhm.
know, no matter what culture you're talking about.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's, I guess, in this book, I'm really excited. We're gonna have a band called Duo Pizzicato,
Mhm.
and they're gonna play. So we're, you know, because it is about the sirens, we have to
Mhm.
have music, you know.
Yes.
There's a musical quality to the, well, the sirens had a wisdom song, you
Uh-huh.
know. So that part in the story gets kind of downplayed a lot of the times. It's mostly like the part of Odysseus sailing through is just that he
Mhm.
survived and they
Right,
were gonna,
right.
but you know, he wanted to hear the wisdom song. So the songs that the
Mhm.
sirens sang were like anybody who was able to survive and listen to him got to hear the wisdom,
Mhm.
of the, you know, of what it was they were singing about, and so he wanted to survive, so to be able to hear it, you know. And to me,
Interesting.
there's a real aspect to that, with the concept of women's voices. This is a little
Mhm.
bit of a contemporary maybe concept or maybe not, but the idea of women holding wisdom, women having wisdom to share, and you know, the patriarchal, like, are you able to hear it? You know, are you able to hear
Mhm.
what
Mhm.
we're trying to call out? And like, there's something very much important about this day and age, like about that coming forward. Like,
Mhm.
I think women's wisdom and women's you know, writing or voices in general coming forward and being
Yeah.
part of like the global conversation. So to me, that was another aspect to the sirens that I felt like I wanted to write about. And then
Mhm.
also from my grandmother's and my own like maternal lineage, which was that, you know, we usually don't hear a lot of the stories that come from our mothers, our grandmothers. We always hear more so about the very loud fathers and grandfathers. Like for instance, like there's some poems in here that are like for my grandfather when he died. He came to the United States, but he actually died in Naples in his sleep
Oh.
when he went to visit. And my grandfather's funeral was like a major like family legend. You know, it was a big deal in the town when he died there. It was like a huge funeral. It was in the papers. It was like a whole
Oh.
big deal. They had hired mourners, which is a whole nother aspect of the culture that is dying off. And that tradition actually comes from ancient Greek, the
Oh,
Greek
okay.
tradition of mourners. And I
I
think
Yeah,
parents are
interesting.
connected to that too.
Yeah. They did that when my grandfather died. We in New York, we had a funeral and I you know, I wasn't of course, I was sad that he passed away, but he was elderly, he had had some health issues, like, I felt like I was okay with saying goodbye, and then I go into the funeral and they have I don't know if they're paid or not in America, but anyway, they had the people all crying for us. And
Yeah, that
it
it's a
I
wild
was fine
tradition.
until I entered the church, and then I'm like, "Well, these people are crying," and then I said, and I'm in the family procession going up this I'm like, tears are running down my face. Interesting.
It's
Yeah.
an unusual tradition, the
Mhm.
hired mourners, because
Mhm.
it's not something that I think it's kinda dying away, like,
Mhm.
especially with, like, modern people in Italy
Mhm.
too, they don't want that, it sounds like.
Mhm.
But I think the tradition goes all the way back to ancient Greece, and
Mhm.
I do believe the sirens and their song was part of this tradition in some way because uh, the one of the things that the mourners would do in ancient culture was the hired mourners, they were called leprefike. Um, they would sing a song about the person who died, and it would
Mhm.
be like it'd start very slow and or very like sad, and then it would crescendo into like all the amazing things this person did in their life, and kind of in an exaltation, and then kind of come down. So there was an aspect of singing about the
Mhm.
person's life
Mhm.
as a way of shepherding the soul off into the next realm and honoring the soul. And to me, that sounds very siren
Oh,
like.
yeah, interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so there's so much to the siren
Mhm.
mythology that can go so deep,
Mhm.
that's way beyond Odysseus.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so they're liminal characters, and they are
Mhm.
connected to death, and they're connected to the
Mhm.
land, and they're connected to life
Mhm.
and guidance and wisdom.
Mhm.
These are much bigger concepts than being like, yeah, like we were calling out, like we know them as a temptress who's gonna
Mhm.
eat men.
Yeah, right.
And so, yeah, they have a much bigger, wider, deeper story than
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, interesting. So,
Um,
any siren stories in San Francisco?
well, I'm sure there are. Like, I'm really digging. I was telling my friend that like I'm really digging like, the mermaid culture. I've always loved mermaids since I was a
Oh.
little girl. Like
Uh-huh.
I've always loved them and always have felt connected to mermaids and mermaid movies and stories and this and stuff. So that must also be in my DNA. But there's like all these subcultures now of people dressing up with mermaid fins. And my mother in Tampa, Florida, is like belongs to a mermaid pod where the women all get together and put mermaid fins
No,
on.
I know a young yes, one of my, yes, I know somebody who grew up doing that. She got sponsored, when she was, like, I don't know, 12, 13. She joined one of those clubs, and she got sponsored to, like, go to events and dress up in the beautiful g I mean, it's like a gown, right? Except that you're can swim in the pool with it. I
Yeah, and then
don't
when I was
know.
growing up in Brooklyn, like, we had Coney Islands, and
Yeah.
it's ironic because 'cause we've got Lawrence Ferlinghetti City Lights and Coney
Mhm.
Island of the Mind, but, like, I grew up next to Coney Islands, and, like, when the beach would open for the summer, they'd have the mermaid parade, and I would dress up when I was little like a mermaid and, in my 20s, like, I'd make my own outfit, I'd be sewing on my scales. So, the mermaid for me has always been in my life, and I feel really deeply connected,
Mhm.
even more so now, like, after researching,
Uh-huh.
all of this book and, like, looking at artifacts, and right now, Naples Archaeological Museum, just as this book went to print, the Naples Archaeological Museum in Italy, has a whole exhibit of artifacts about the sirens right now, and
Mm.
unfortunately, it's only up for, like, a short period of time, but
Mhm.
it's amazing, like the sculptures that were done and the paintings and the art and the offerings and the artifacts from the temples. It's
Mhm.
just amazing. And it makes it very real, because like we
Mhm.
always oh mermaids, it's this kind of like, fairy
Right.
tale. But this is real art and artifacts that are
Mhm.
around this. So there's something very, you know, visceral about that.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's beautiful. Mhm.
Yeah, that's so cool. So we got, let's see. So, where can you buy the book if you're
Yes.
not local? we'll talk about the local in a second, but
Yeah, if you're not a local, I would send you to featherpressbooks.wordpress.com or to go to, if you are local, to go to Telegraph Hill Books, or you can
mhm.
go to telegraphhillbooks.com. And if you are local, definitely come out for the book release party, which will be this Friday, June 5th at 6:30 p.m. at Telegraph Hill Books. It's 1501 Grant Avenue off of Union Street. It's a
Mhm.
beautiful bookstore, and we'll have live music all night. That's will be integrated with the poetry with a beautiful four-piece mandolin band group called Duo Pizzicato.
Oh, lovely.
And
Mandolins, yes, you gotta have the mandolins.
yes, and we'll be doing some like unique renditions of some music from Naples,
Oh,
and
lovely.
they've actually traveled to Naples and played
Mhm.
this band, and so yeah, there'll be some beautiful music that hopefully can accompany these poems.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, and so if you're in San Francisco, there's bus lines that goes right to this, block away from the store. And it's yeah, Grant and Union in North Beach. Um, make a night of it. Actually, is that going to be our first Friday also?
It is. So yeah, it'll be the night when we have like open studios and
Yeah.
like our art galleries are
Yeah,
having
so make a night
shows.
of it. It's like I think it's from like 5 to 10 is the art walk, and all along Grant Avenue and around North Beach there'll be art places opening late, live music. The retail shops stay open late. But then this is 6:30 to 8:30ish,
Yeah,
something like
this will
that.
be like 6:30 to 8.
Yeah. So and I will give you, yeah, she gave you the links right there to go, but I will also post it in my when I post the video, it'll be there too, so you can remind yourself. Um and yay, this has been fun.
Oh,
uh
it's a
I didn't
pleasure.
know so much about these sirens.
I know. I think I really would like to. I think my next step, because from all my travels, like I said, I'd seen a lot of artifacts and sacred spaces. I took so many photos that I would really love to do like a visual talk
Mm,
that's also about the history and these type of concepts, but with some of the pieces that I've
mhm.
seen in museums and things like that from my travels. Hmm.
Yeah, nice. So, Sirenland by Jennifer Barone out. It's available now, right? You're
It
already
is.
selling it.
It's
Yeah.
available.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you for coming. We had a few people. We had Raven Silk, we have Marcia, and some other people. Samuel, Dimitri, El que escribe. Thank you for joining us. Um, yeah, it's just been fun. Connecting with the Italian American heritage. How funny that we're both from the Naples area.
And
I
you
know
have
less
then
about my history,
you have siren history.
Yeah,
Did
right.
you know?
I don't know what part of Naples we're from. I have to ask. Both sides of my families ended up like one of my grandparents lived in Brooklyn, but more in a Jewish neighborhood, and the other one lived in a more Italian. Anyway, they got set up, and that's how they met each other. I know my grandfather had a girlfriend who said, "I know a nice Italian girl I could set you up with," and they ended up both being from the same area in Italy. But so I find that fascinating. But
Love it.
um, yeah, I wanna make it to Italy someday. Unfortunately, unfortunately, I'm working on my Spanish fluency,
Okay.
so my chances of going to Spain are higher than Italy, but I would love to go just because 'cause I'm so excited to be able to speak in a foreign language after all
Have
these
you
years.
have you been? Have you ever gone? Or not
I've been to
yet?
Mallorca. I went to Mallorca once, but my Spanish, I wasn't practicing Spanish then, so I could basically ask basic things like, "Where do I find the bus stop?" Or, So I'm doing a lot better now, but I've been studying daily for the last since the pandemic pretty much, so like 5 years,
But you haven't been to Italy yet then?
No, I haven't been to Italy yet. Yeah,
Ah.
I need to go. I haven't done a lot of I haven't really done a lot of abroad. I've been to Canada, I haven't been to Mexico yet either, and we live in California.
Well, we might have to
So,
get you there.
yeah, definitely. So, yeah, and, yeah, it'll be fun to see what Naples is all about.
I mean, especially if your family comes there, like, there's really nothing like it when you do have the history
Yeah.
there. I mean, you just immediately, feel that in your bones, when
Mhm,
you're there. It's something that's difficult to describe. It's really
mhm,
very somatic. Yeah.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you for joining us, everybody. And I'll send the links again to the talk and to her book. And you can find us on Substack. Jennifer is new to Substack, but she does a lot of local things. She puts stuff out on Instagram, which is on her website and her Instagram are on the Substack thing. And also she will post this video in her Substack place also. And then I am Rosemary DeSena of Life is a Poem. And
Thank you. That's great.
you'll, if you're subscribed to me, you'll get to either of us, you will get a video recounting this in your emails. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Rosemary. This has been so much fun.
Yes, it's been great to have you. And yes, North Beach. There's so much. There's so, like you said, like sitting in, walking down the street and running into playwrights and poets and musicians, and it's very unique neighborhood. So it's been great. It's great to see you in person. It's great to see you online.
Yes. We'll run into each other at the cafe when we're
Right.
both writing.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Ciao.
everyone.